Alice Guo flees the Philippines. America's nuclear strategy takes aim at China, and new plans for a war in Asia. Then more on this week's China News headlines. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. Let's ease in today's headlines with something nice and light. The threat of nuclear war. President Biden has approved a new nuclear strategy for America to focus it more on China. The new strategy was actually approved back in March and was successfully kept under wraps for several months, which is pretty surprising since military leaks on video game forums have become the norm. The White House is denying that there were any major changes and claims the new strategy isn't aimed at any particular country. However, the acting Assistant Secretary of Defense for Space Policy at the time said in a speech earlier this month that the new strategy was aimed at multiple nuclear-armed adversaries and in particular the significant increase in the size and diversity of the PRC's nuclear arsenal, which sounds pretty aimed at a particular country to me. China's nuclear arsenal has grown rapidly, and the Pentagon believes that Beijing's nuclear arsenal will triple by 2035. Because who needs solid infrastructure in a booming economy when you can have countless nukes? And speaking of people endangered by China, the Philippines. Once again, the Chinese Communist Party has threatened the Philippines, this time by firing flares from an artificial island base at a fisheries plane. The latest incident happened near Subi Reef in the South China Sea. China has transformed much of the area into a militarized island base. Because while most people see a reef and think, how pretty, when China sees a reef, they think, what a great place for guns. Not many other details on the incident have been revealed, but the same plane was also harassed on August 19th by a Chinese fighter jet in the region. Both the United States and the Philippines have condemned the incident, with Philippine Military Chief General Romeo Brawner Jr. saying if the flames came into contact with our aircraft, they could have blown into the propeller or the in-tank or burned our plane. It was very dangerous. Luckily, nobody was hurt, but the CCP blamed the Philippines for, you guessed it, illegally entering its territory, which has joined China's greatest hits of excuses, right alongside, we didn't do that, this was just Western propaganda, and the dog did it. You leave biscuits out of this, CCP. He's a good boy. Because of this latest incident, the U.S. Air Force is considering its missile defense options for defending dispersed bases should it go to war with China. The U.S. has long feared that if war broke out, its traditional bases in Guam or Japan would be hit by long-range Chinese missiles. That would degrade the military capabilities of the U.S. throughout the region. So the Air Force developed something called ACE, the Agile Combat Employment. This would spread out aerial operations to a number of smaller operating locations in the region, thus making it harder to target. As an avid horror movie fan, this may be the first time I've ever heard of a plan to split up that actually resulted in fewer people getting killed. The U.S. is currently practicing drills to test out how such a system would work, although many details remain classified for the time being. What we do know is that some of those ACE locations could be local civilian airports or austere bases set up in the field with rough airfields, which could be run by smaller teams of multi-capable airmen who know how to do numerous jobs instead of just one specialty. In addition, the Air Force would have to deploy even more air defense systems and increase reliance on cyber capabilities to defend these bases. So far, the training seems to be going well, with many airmen quickly adapting to these multi-role jobs. But it's clear there's a lot of work left to do, especially if any of these are Boeing planes. And after the break, the Alice Guo saga continues. Welcome back. So as we've seen, things are pretty rocky between the US and China, but rest assured the US hasn't given up on diplomacy with the CCP yet. For the first time since the Obama administration, a national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, is headed to mainland China to address concerns about China's ties with Russia and tensions in the South China Sea. Sullivan is scheduled to be in China from August 27th to 29th amid concerns about Chinese interference in the 2024 presidential election and restoring lines of communication between the two countries, because lack of communication has been the problem this whole time. Sullivan will meet with Wang Yi, China's foreign minister. The two are scheduled to discuss the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East alongside South China Sea tensions. It's unknown if Beijing and Washington will actually agree on any of these issues, but an anonymous official said that the hours-long discussions are about clearing up misperceptions and avoiding this competition from veering into conflict. Yes, the best case scenario is We disagree with all your opinions and think you're a terrible person, but we just don't have the energy to do anything about it right now. Indeed, a phone call between Biden and Xi might even be happening in the coming weeks after candid discussions, according to the White House. I'm sure interpreters will be needed for that call since Biden doesn't speak Mandarin and Xi doesn't speak... whatever that is. Alice Guo, the former Philippines mayor accused of being a Chinese spy and deeply embedded with Chinese crime syndicates, has disappeared from the Philippines. We've done a few videos on Alice Guo, I'll link them below. Guo escaped the Philippines by boat in July with her siblings, undetected by bribing Bureau of Immigration officials and other authorities with 200 million Philippine pesos. This is doubly shocking because this is one of the only Filipino boats to enter water and not immediately be harassed by China in some way. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. warned that heads will roll over the corruption that undermines our justice system and erodes public trust. Winston Casio, the spokesperson of the Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Commission, believes that Guo is currently in Indonesia with her brother, Wesley. But it appears that Guo is headed to an area of Southeast Asia called the Golden Triangle, which sits on the Mekong River Delta area of Laos, Thailand, and Myanmar. It's an area known for porous borders, making it perfect for drug production and trafficking, among other crimes. Basically the most obvious place a clearly innocent woman would flee to when she's being framed for reasons. Casio also pointed out that she cannot go to China since she is already a person of interest as far as China is concerned because she's accused of a serious crime in the Philippines in relation to illegal gambling. We know how strict China is in relation to gambling in their own territories, so definitely she will not come to any of those territories. And as Casio also mentioned, the Guo family has business interests in nearby Cambodia, so that's probably her safest bet. It's believed that Guo remains in Indonesia and isn't yet trying to leave, but Indonesian authorities did detain her sister, Sheila. After being deported back to the Philippines and facing a hearing from government officials, Sheila admitted that she's a Chinese citizen who isn't even related by blood to Alice Guo. Is anything about Alice Guo real? Is that even her hair, or is she wearing extensions? Everything is a lie. Jaime Santiago, the head of the National Bureau of Investigations, or NBI, said that the fingerprints of Sheila match those of a certain Zhang Mer. That name also matches her Chinese passport. In the hearing, Sheila admitted that she was actually a Chinese citizen who came to the Philippines when she was 16 or 17 to work in the embroidery business on the orders of a man she called her father. That would be Alice Guo's father, Jianzhong Guo, who Sheila admitted was her foster dad in the island country and provided her with all her Philippine documents. Sheila also admitted that she was born in China and that her mother still lives there. According to Sheila, she was told upon her arrival to the Philippines that Alice was her sister and she decided to just go with it. She also said the reason that Alice fled was because she was sad due to the hearing. Which makes sense. I also get really sad when I'm caught in a lie and could be tried for treason. Such a bummer. Sheila Guo is currently in the custody of the NBI along with a Philippine offshore gaming operator named Cassandra Lee Ong, who was arrested and deported with her. But Ong has a Philippine passport, so she hasn't been charged yet. The NBI did confirm that Sheila Guo will be charged with violating the Philippine Passport Act, and it will file additional charges for immigration violations since she fraudulently acquired a Philippine passport and misrepresented herself as a citizen of the country. The NBI hasn't issued an arrest warrant for Alice Guo yet. When they do, the Philippine authorities will be able to issue a red notice and work with Interpol to have her detained and returned to the Philippines. The case and hearings are ongoing, so we'll likely know even more information in the coming weeks. Now, here's a video I want to share with you. It's called, Can You Have Good Without God? It's from my new show, Deep Thoughts While Gaming, where I take a look at news and philosophy through the lens of gaming, and this one is about Dark Souls. Click here to check it out. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.